Good afternoon. I'm John Barnacle Bowd. I'm the Vice President for Environmental Health and Safety at RS Group. Today we're going to be looking at the confidence gap within health and safety community and discussing the key takeaways from the 2025 Health and Safety Report created by RS Group. The report is downloadable via the link in the comments today. So today I have a panellist with me and I'd like you to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, John, for having me. My name is Edward Debra. I'm a first career health and safety professional, having practiced in diverse industries, oil and gas, construction, now waste management, education, higher education, and all of that. So, yeah, a Ghanaian national based in the UK.
Good to have you here. Thank you very much. So the themes we are going to be discussing today as part of this next hour is mental health, environment, social and governance, commonly known as ESG, budget cuts, productivity pressures and accident and KPIs. We do have some set questions that we're going to talk through, which is great, and there will be time for the audience to ask questions at the end. So we'll hope to have about 15 minutes at the end to have some questions laid on. So if you have any, please post them into the chat now. So we'll go straight on. This year's Health and Safety Report found that confidence is at its lowest since 2023 in key areas of practice. Health and safety professionals are less sure of their ability to protect employees, and they have found the overall attitude towards managing EHS to have fallen. Confidence is both down 4% year on year from 84% to 80% respectively. So first question. Do the experiences within your professional network tally with these findings? And if so, what are some of the factors that you think are behind them?
That's interesting. Typically, health and safety, really, from my professional network, I think that it's rather improving. Confidence gap is actually improving rather than going down. Professional network in terms of people back home in Ghana. Mm-hmm. There's a new wave of health and safety that is blowing in the country. So you find a lot of people now trying to get involved with health and safety. How do I know this? So a couple of years back, I served as a first chairman for Augean in Ghana. Mm-hmm. And during those advocacy sessions, we had a lot of people that actually got in touch with me to find out how they can be professionals. That has grown from there. Now, flipping the chart and looking at the situation in the UK, you would see that a lot of the people are not too confident that that is there, because some leaders make it look like health and safety happens to be a ticking box exercise. Mm-hmm. So it's always overlooked. And that means that when people report events and things, they don't get the needed attention. They don't even get the resources that they need to do safe work. So because of that, they won't even bother engaging leaders. So for me, that is what I think it's causing the decline.
Okay. So it's a bit like bringing health and safety to the fore in the business, keeping it as a key part of the organisation and not having it as a piece on the side. Like we're having what we want is actually a seat at the table on health and safety. So it's part of the integral business attitudes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so moving on, and all these questions today are taken really from the evidence that we had in the report this year. So through the report, the evidence came through that confidence in mental health support has been consistently lower than other areas of health and safety practice and has dropped again this year to just 53%. So the questions are, do professionals have access to the tools and help they need? And what needs to change within health and safety spectrum to help support mental health?
Mental health, it's a very sensitive topic, personally for me, mm-hmm. because when I was growing up, I unfortunately lost my dad at a very young age. I think I was about 11 years old when I lost my dad. And where I'm from in Africa, we have an adage that goes like, men don't cry. Mm-hmm. Even if you cry, you don't have to cry in public, So all the time, men are trained to believe that we are immortal. Mm-hmm. So based on that, a lot of people, including myself, made a lot of mistakes that because we didn't have the guidance of a father from a very young age, we made a lot of mistakes. And I think that is still happening now. Mm-hmm. Men do not get the opportunity to speak out. They don't get the opportunity to speak up. Even when they are going through challenging times in life, which is normal anyway, they don't get the people to talk to. In organizations, you would find that people are called mental health first aiders on paper. But on the ground, there's a deviation. Deviation in terms of the fact that you meet people who obviously want to have a confidential conversation with you. Now, it turns out that it might be confidential, but at the end of the day, other people will hear the confidential issues. So when that happens, if I'm the victim, I won't come to you anymore. I'll grapple with the pain, I'll go through the stress, the anxiety, everything else by myself. And what else do I resort to? Maybe alcohol, drug misuse, and that obviously affects concentration at work. It leads to accidents. So in my view, mental health needs a lot of support. Not just by way of talking about it and celebrating it on the day, but let's move with action. Let's try to have open door policies where people are confident to come talk to you and they know that the matter stays within there. Let's empower people to actually share their challenges, share their concerns with others. Again, another saying, one key can open multiple doors. My challenge may be the key that you need to navigate through your own. So if you allow men in particular to advocate and talk about their struggles, it would help deal with mental health issues. Again, on women, they also need to have a voice. It's not a case of where a woman complains and people just brush their aside and go like, oh, women are like that. No, we have to stop that. We need to move away from the norm and begin to realize that people are different. Our struggles are different. So when there's open door policy, there's always support, and then people can actually confide in others with their problems. I believe that would help turn the tides around mental health.
Okay, I think it's good, and we had a brief discussion beforehand where I had an incident in my past where an accident, well, it wasn't an accident, but an incident was created, and it wasn't really termed as mental health at the time, but somebody was doing something they shouldn't do at work. I won't elaborate on that. But when we spoke to this person, his wife had left him. She'd taken the children, he was going to lose the house. Although it's not a defined case of mental health, he was suffering and he wasn't really concentrating on his work for those days, which would probably be termed now as, you know, he's struggling with his mental health because he's not focused on the job. You spoke about the mental health first aiders. Now, I've done the training course to be a mental health first aider. I do need to do the refresh. I must get around to doing that again. But I think as health and safety guys now, because I think a lot of the health and safety people in the past have moved away from being the clipboard safety guy, where they used to go to a site and say, oh, you don't want to do it like that, do it like this type thing. I think we're now becoming more approachable. And I like that approach for health and safety professionals because we can be that person that people can trust. Yeah. You know, we can give advice, we can, you know, foster that relationship with all of the employees, whatever level in the business they are. So I think if you're not a mental health first aid trained person, you could, you know, be the unofficial voice of reason and hopefully give that person some confidence that there's actually someone they can talk to at work.
You're right, you're spot on. I actually do my health and safety job with three things in mind: engagement, influence, and collaboration. So one thing that I find different is that, so I've worked with, the greater part of my career has been in Africa, transitioning into the UK, different culture and everything else. So I noticed that there's the need for me to try to bridge the gap. How do I do that? I need to get closer to the people. So there are certain times that I work which is actually out of the norm. I'm supposed to do from 8 to 5 every day, but sometimes I alternate, do at night and all of that, just to get to know the people. And what does that do? Once the people know that you are part of them, going through the process with them, they are more inclined to trust you and they can confide in you. Yeah. In that case, you are able to engage them more often, collaborate with them when doing their jobs, and then be able to influence them positively. So I believe that has helped to a large extent in navigating through all these challenges. And again, I must stress that everything I'm sharing here are entirely my views, does not reflect the position of my employer in any way.
No, that's fine. And you know, we've both used the same word there several times, and it's collaborate and being collaborative. Yeah. When I did my NEBOSH training many years ago, I don't think collaborate was anywhere in that course material, can't remember. And it was more about the legal compliance bill and all this, but I think it's those softer skills.
Yes.
Where you learn to talk to people.
Yes. And
you know, be that approachable person. I think that's where the health and safety people of the future need to be more than anything else. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Great. So, ESG, how many of us out there now have had sustainability or ESG added to their job title as health and safety, or health, safety, environment, or quality, health, safety, environment, security, or sustainability? It grows and grows. But we did look at the ESG portion of this through the survey this year. So the analysis on this is the downward trend is also visible in a small drop in companies reporting strategies for accident prevention, fire prevention, mental health support and cultural change. Similarly, fewer organisations are tracking KPIs, including their all accident rate and near miss rate. So question is there a risk that companies are taking their eye off the ball in some areas? And then the second part is, what can professionals do to get them back on track?
I believe that every company is set up for profit.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, health and safety becomes an afterthought.
Yep.
Most of the time. This is not for all companies. I know companies that are, and I've worked with companies that are forward-thinking, they involve health and safety from the beginning. But to put things to context, if we begin to look at health and safety as an ticking box exercise, we won't be able to make the gains we are looking for. Mm-hmm. Health and safety is there to protect their business, reputation-wise. It will support the business, reduce losses financially, and it's to comply with all applicable legislation. So if these three things are supposed to be anything to the leadership, then we have to be at the table discussing this thing from the very beginning. Once we are part of it from the beginning, we'll be able to do our risk assessments. In fact, go back to the basics. Mm-hmm. Do our risk assessments and things like that to identify the potential areas that there could be problems, so we can fix it early before it happens. A stitch in time saves 9. Mm-hmm. If you put them involved early, it helps you to get things done properly. If not, tomorrow, all the profit that you are looking at gaining, for which reason you ignored health and safety, you will end up paying all those profit in fines. Mm-hmm. Take, for instance, you have a major accident at your site and the HSE gets involved. There's fee for intervention. And they are charging, the last time I checked, I think it's about £163 an hour. So assuming they are supposed to help you for 6 months, multiply 163 times 40 hours a week times 60. Mm-hmm. 6 months, 6 months. That should tell you how much money you are losing.
Yep.
Apart from that, also look at the reputation. Which organization is going to trust you enough to allow you to do business with them, knowing that your accident record is not great? Mm-hmm. So you would realize that it is very important. Just as the chicken and egg situation, we have to be part of it from the beginning so we can develop the robust system that will stand a test of time to drive productivity. Yeah. Indeed, health and safety means business, mm-hmm. and obviously it gives more profit when you comply with health and safety legislation rather than ignoring them.
Yeah. I know on some of the other talks that I've been doing on here and elsewhere, when we're talking about KPIs, and it was surprising the number of organisations that don't have any KPIs related to health and safety. My comment to that really was, if you're not measuring it, you're not managing it. Yeah. So if we were to think about the health and safety role as such, and if we haven't got KPIs in the business, how do you think we'd go about creating those? What would be those KPIs that you would implement in the next business you go to if they've got no KPIs in place?
That's a major problem. If you don't have any KPI in the business, you're not doing anything. Because Peter Drucker said, once you can't measure, you can't manage. Mm-hmm. For me, safety engagement is key. By safety engagement, I'm referring to reporting on safe acts, on safe conditions, mm-hmm. and not just reporting. Once they are reported, there has to be action being done, mm-hmm. Action being taken to address those concerns. A lot of the time, operators in most businesses that I've had a chance of working for will tell you that, oh, we report, but we don't see anything happening. Mm-hmm. Because of that, they don't continue to do it. So if we're able to measure the performance by checking how many near-miss reports are reported in a month, that will be able to give us an idea of what could potentially go wrong. Mm-hmm. Then we can deal with them. That would be a good KPI to measure people with. So, once you begin to drive this safety engagement reporting, it translates into culture. It now becomes part of them, not something that they have to do. It's something that they will do, mm-hmm. not something they have to do. So once the employees from subordinates, superiors, and all of them agree that it actually makes a lot of business sense to report more, they would, and that can be measured. If you want to look at it in terms of Pareto principle of 80-20 rule, you would realize that if near misses are properly reported, let's just say 20% near miss reported, could translate into 80% gains you may make. However, if none is reported, 80% gains could be destroyed because of 20% near misses that aren't reported. So the key KPI is to drive safety engagement, and that really has to start from the top.
Yeah, agreed. You mentioned the term near miss as well, and I think for me, we're a global organisation. Near miss is more of that generic term. I think historically the near miss was where something fell off a shelf and just missed a person, obviously. Yeah. But now we have that as a generic term for hazards, unsafe acts, unsafe conditions. Yeah. And if people are reporting those, it's helping to drive that culture, isn't it? Yeah. But to your point, it's only helping to drive that culture if leadership and the management team take action to correct those near misses to prevent it becoming an accident. So that's good. I did read some time ago, and I need to go back to that article actually and find out where it was. Somebody said that the only KPI you need to measure is trust. I have no idea how you can measure trust, but it's an interesting conundrum for us, isn't it, of how you actually get that. Instead of measuring an accident, you measure trust in an organisation. So if anyone's out there knows how to measure trust, let me know. It'll be an interesting one for us. The next question now. The report, and I know you're passionate about this one, the report found that skills shortages remain the biggest concern for professionals over the next 12 months. What can be done to tempt more young people into the safety profession?
This topic is really something very close to my heart. Years ago, when I started my journey with IOSH as the first chairman for Ghana, we used to do a lot of webinars over the weekends, and we found a lot of people getting involved. And prior to that, I entered a competition to deliver a presentation on how to attract, retain, and grow younger ones into the profession. Now, one thing that strikes out for me is that we've got to catch them young so they can be ours forever. We need to start investing in their education, STEM education. We need to find a way of making it very attractive. These days, when I started health and safety, it's not been too long, it's just about 13 years ago, there were a lot of papers and things that we used to fill out, forms, inspection checklists, all of those things. The younger generation now are more inclined to use tablets and things like that to do things. If we want to attract them, we should make it exciting. We shouldn't let health and safety be like it's so boring as a lot of people perceive. Let's make it exciting, and they'll be there to stay. Another thing that we have to do, I've noticed in the UK that there's apprenticeship scheme, which is great. We now need to find a way of still getting a lot more people to get involved with apprenticeship, because a number of people that I've met, that I've worked with, all went through the apprenticeship route. And I feel like it gives them a very solid foundation. So that has to be popularized, whichever means whatever incentives governments can give businesses that run apprenticeship schemes should be done, so that it will be an avenue for people to enroll through that course. Let's just say tax cuts. If a business decides to hire a lot more apprentices, government decides that we're going to reduce your taxes, it will be a good incentive for organizations to get involved with that. Another thing that we have to look at is that mentorship. I don't take this opportunity for granted, right? So there are certain things that you have done in the past. Today, you wouldn't want to do them again. And when you see that I am on the same direction, you will clearly know I'm heading towards doom. You will be able to tell me. Then I have to take it. That is the mentorship relationship. You're guiding me to avoid the mistakes you've made. But the other question is, are younger ones prepared to go through the mentorship? Because there's this aggression and know-it-all attitude amongst young people. They feel like they've seen it all. Meanwhile, they know nothing. Right? So young people must be willing to subject themselves to mentorship. I've been a product of mentorship. And everywhere I go, I mention my mentor's name. He's Craig Foyle. He supported my career from the start till now. So young people must be willing to go to mentorship. Another thing that would help attract a younger talent is that they have to be hungry to learn. Nobody is going to give you good things on a platter of gold. You've got to work for it. So as you are interested in a profession, you need to develop yourself. outside of your work. It could be anyhow, anything that you have to find to read, resources that helping you should be there to sort of support them do that. We've got a lot of professional bodies around as well. Are they creating enough room to attract younger ones? Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to give free membership fees for younger ones as early career starters. So if they can join any professional body, IOSH, WRSM, AIMA, all of them, for free, that would be a good opportunity for them. Because young people who don't have money, who don't know where they are going, if you're charging them membership fees, it becomes a disincentive. So there's a lot of things that needs doing. Obviously, government, legislation. Yeah. It's not just enough having legislation in place. They have to be enforced. They have to be applied to the latter. So once that is done and it's favorable, you end up that you realize that you will find younger people getting involved in the profession, growing through the profession and taking it over. Because in the next 20 years, I won't be here.
No.
In the next 15 years, you won't be here. So then if we leave, what happens?
That's very true.
We've got to find a way, develop a pipeline through the education curriculum, education fairs. One of the things that I do is I've got a charity. And it's one of the things I do. I'm trying to raise a lot of people. For the last 3 years that the charity has been in existence, I've mentored over 300 people in health and safety. And that is my own way of giving back to the community. So if we all decide to take an interest in that, it helps. One question that I get asked about younger people is that, is health and safety career rewarding? So as leaders, can we begin to think about making it more rewarding so that the younger ones will be attracted? And how I answer that question is, well, it depends on how you see reward. I do not see reward in terms of money. I feel comfortable when I know that people come to work with 5 fingers, 10 fingers, and go back home with the same 10 fingers. That for me is my reward. You know. So if you're able to do that, it helps. Then they will know that there's actually something there. And can health and safety people rise to chief executive positions? Yes. When younger ones begin to see that there's a clear career path getting to the top from there, they'll be interested. Yeah. Because all of them want to get to the height of their career. So if that opportunity is there, it helps them to grow to it. And I think those are some of the ways that we can actually do to attract them. Yeah. The minute they are in there, we need to obviously hold them by the hand, take them through the ropes. We should make them understand that if you make a mistake, it's all right. We learn from mistakes, and everybody is prone to make mistakes. Yeah. So once that happens, then they will gain that confidence. And when that confidence comes, it would show in their work that they can grow in it. That's how I feel we can attract and retain young ones.
I think so. And, you know, you mentioned a couple of words there. You use the term exciting. You know, how do we make health and safety exciting? Yeah. I always use the term, you know, it's not a sexy subject, and it's really not, and it's not, but it is exciting at times, you know, knowing you've got a new project or something you've got to look at, and it's created from ground up, and you have to create the, you know, the RAMs for it, the risk assessment method statements, and all of that work that goes into it. I think it's quite fulfilling when you deliver a safe project and no one has got hurt, or, you know, we've actually got a good culture on that site. But we talk about young people, but I'm also thinking here, as you know, just as you're talking, we're sitting, what about people that are not necessarily young as in school children or school leavers? What about those that are in their mid-20s and they're thinking, oh, okay, well, I took this career as a plumber, but I don't really like it, or I'm a hairdresser and I don't like that either. How do I change tack and go into something else? So I think, you know, it's not just the school leavers we should target, but it's also how we foster that community so we're more attractive for, you know, people in the mid-20s that have thought, maybe the career I picked, it sounded nice at the time when all my mates wanted to be plumbers and they all wanted to be hairdressers or beauticians, but it's not really for me. And I think that's something we need to focus on as well at that college, university type level. And that's going to be a tricky one, I think, because you can't capture them people in one room, can you, like you could do at school? Yeah,
you cannot. I mean, you cannot. This is why you always have to give them a listening ear. Because when concerns are raised, you just don't have to brush them aside. Have that open door policy to be able to engage them, address the concerns and everything else. Ultimately, we also have to look at it in terms of work-life balance.
Yeah.
So once you're able to create that enabling environment for them to thrive and survive, they would be there. So somebody might have a different outlook. Maybe they start off in health and safety, and along the line, they like to branch out. You might want to find out why. If they give you genuine reasons why you feel that they're no more passionate about it, you have to guide their steps to where they want to go. But still have to make them understand that health and safety is part of us.
Yeah.
We live with it all the time. Getting on the train, health and safety is applicable. Getting on the bus, health and safety is applicable. Even cooking in your own kitchen, health and safety is applicable. So once they begin to realize that it is part of us and that we need the masses to be able to influence and change perception and things like that, it will be the right thing to do. Yeah. So yeah,
there's a lot of work to do, and I know there's lots of people out there that are doing the mentorship piece. Yeah. But remember, it's not just formal mentorship. Even having a conversation with a school leaver or somebody and telling them what you do. Yeah. I don't know how you can make it overly exciting, but I don't just deal with health and safety. Obviously, I've got environmental as well, like a lot of people have. But it's the random questions. I think in the health and safety role, because you are plugged into so many different departments in a business, people automatically go to you for the random question of the day, like, where can I park my push bike? Or, am I allowed to smoke in that area? Or, why is the floor red? Stupid questions, but I think we always get those questions, and that happens every day. So I think it's not necessarily always exciting, but it is very broad. Yeah. Yeah, and there's lots to be learnt within that health and safety piece, I think, where you plug into other areas. Yeah. So as we move on now, we're going to talk about budgets and how we manage that. So through the survey, a lot of safety professionals are also concerned about budget cuts, a worry that is reflected across the business landscape at the moment. So it's not necessarily just health and safety. But coinciding with this concern is recognition of increased pressure to improve productivity. So my question to you, Edward, is, are EHS professionals properly equipped to manage the balance between safety and productivity?
This is a very tricky question. So in my view, a lot of EHS professionals are now equipped to do that. But then you would also realize that some of the leaders of businesses, those especially in charge of finance, are always looking at it in terms of what can give us the quickest returns, what can give us more returns. And most of the time, it is not safety. Most of the time, it so happens that what can turn around the business quickly is not safety. So you would find that people would do things that are cutting corners and getting the job done without due care to safety. So I feel like it is very important that we begin to go back to the basics again. We begin to go back to why we're doing what we're doing. We begin to look at the implications of the law if safety is thrown to the background. We begin to look at even the morality of issues, how people feel. If I have an accident at work and nothing's done about it, it's a demotivator. A lot of the people who probably follow me or are closer to me in the job will be demotivated as well. And when that happens, mistakes will happen. So whatever it is that the leadership were looking at it in terms of funds, right, will not be achieved because there will be downtime. You now need to find money to replace the people who are injured and all that. So that does not help. So I feel like we have to, once we are part of the conversation from the beginning, it will change the whole thing. But if we are not part of the conversation from the beginning and we are just like an afterthought, then you would expect that we won't be able to achieve the target we set for ourselves. So leaders really have a crucial role here to involve safety from the beginning. Yeah. I've been quite privileged that the businesses I've worked on in the past, all the leaders in those organizations have been spot on when it comes to safety. In fact, they actually lead the charge on safety. So years ago, business I used to work for, I used to prepare my budget. So I was part of the budget team. So I put in my budget, I go to defend my budget, and never a time was the leader never a time did the leader ever tell me that we have to cancel this because it costs a lot of money. In fact, I was actually given a lot more money to spend.
There you go, lucky, yeah.
Yes, because they feel like if you don't comply with some of the regulations, you have no business in the first place. So the leaders really have a role to play, but they need to involve not just health and safety. They should look at the environmental concerns, because these days, a lot of businesses are trying to create sustainable solutions. We are trying to do things today that will benefit future generations. And those things tend to be quite expensive. So if we are part of the conversation from the beginning, we'll be able to give our input. And when we are able to give our input, we will be able to drive it to the end to make sure that things are done properly.
So there's that piece about being connected to leaders, make sure that we're aligned with them from the beginning. But also thinking about this point, that if the leaders create a shortcut to maintain productivity or increase productivity, from a technical standpoint as a safety professional, we want to ensure that that risk assessment is still valid and up to date.
Yeah.
Now that risk assessment, because we're doing it internally, is a free resource. It's a gift really for that leader to talk to the safety guy and say, look, we want to do this. How can we increase productivity while still keeping the people safe? And it's having that open discussion, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And not be seen as the guys that sit in the office and write risk assessments without any input from the workforce. Yeah. But talk to the people, you know, that are doing the job. Work with the leaders to make sure that, we're struggling as a business. Yeah. We need to make, some cuts. How do we make those cuts that are, although they are needed to keep the business running, they don't impact on the safety of our people? And I think that's the precious one, isn't it, really, that cuts have to be made in business. Obviously businesses, you said beforehand, first priority is to make money. There wouldn't be a business if they weren't making money. Okay. But it's how they do that safely, isn't it? And by including us, the safety professionals, we should be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And then it's written, it's proved, we've got the risk assessment, so if anything does happen, we should still be making that money, meeting new productivity targets, while still keeping people safe, which is the ultimate of what we need.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because once you try to downplay the effort of health and safety, whatever profits that you think you make will be eroded. Mm-hmm. I mean, begin to think about insurance claims, for instance. If you don't comply with road safety regulations and your company vehicles are always on the fleet, and again, talking from oil and gas background, we used to have fuel trucks that were traveling several distances, miles and things in a day. So you cannot say that you're not going to check the tires to make sure the tires are in good working order, just because you want to make money. If the tires are bad and they get involved in an accident, two things are involved. You are going to destroy the environment because it's hydrocarbons that will be poured onto the ground. The land might be destroyed. You have to reclaim that land. After reclaiming it, the vehicle is also destroyed. You have to fix it. All that probably is insured. So your insurance, premiums will go high. So leaders really have no business thinking that they can do everything without safety. In fact, everything rises and falls on leadership. Once they get involved, everything else changes. Yeah,
very true, very true. And it's not just the formal leaders as well. I find that the informal leaders out there, the guy that's in the rest area that's always a bit louder than everybody else, but people listen to, he's that person we should partner with as well, I think.
Yes, so, very important. To exert our influence, yes, we need it.
Yeah, we do. Okay, good. So this is the last formal question. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat so we can talk about those in a moment or two. Through the survey, the other one was perhaps another consequence of budget concerns is that fewer safety professionals are prepared to pay a premium for sustainable products. With those willing have dropped to 60% from 78% last year. So an 18% drop, that's quite significant. So what can organisations do to make it easier for safety professionals to contribute to sustainability goals?
First of all, I believe that sustainability is a very interesting subject that needs to be discussed. Not just in the boardroom, but it needs to be discussed even at operational meetings. So a lot of the employees might not consider them as important. Although getting sustainable solutions is not cheap, it comes at a cost. Normally, these costs are not planned. So because of that, you have to really look at it holistically and see the benefits you are going to derive from the items you are buying. For instance, if you are introducing new machinery that will reduce number of man hours but still be more efficient, it might cost you money today, but you get the returns later. So begin to think about the environment, your contribution to the environment. Because if you are seen as a green business, you get more business. So if you reduce your footprint, obviously you can get your money back through carbon crediting and all of that. So leaders must be thinking about the future so they can make wise decisions, get the people involved. Change in behavior, I think, could drive all these things. Because if we have an air conditioner office, for instance, and the weather is not too hot, you don't need to turn on the air conditioners. You can open the windows to get fresh air. That costs you some money, right? Yeah, that saves you some money, and then you can invest it in other ways. So it's very important that the conversation of sustainability is had from early on. Because whether you like it or yes, the world is moving. And it's either you join it or you play catch up. And by the time you're playing catch up, forward-thinking businesses might have taken over the business already. So we've got to plan for the future today.
Yeah. I think, the question there is really about sustainable products, but I think that it goes beyond that, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it does.
And I wrote down energy, vehicles, PPE, and that points to, energy with efficiency of new equipment and so on.
Even today, these days, we have applications that support with accident investigation, accident reporting, and all of that. Those are sustainable practices because in the past, we would do it a lot of paper. That means cutting trees. So if a business invests in cloud-based systems, initially it will cost money, but the returns they will get in the future obviously will outweigh the amount of money they lost. So we've got to think about these things once we move forward.
And I think for some of the items that we talk about, so sustainable vehicles, so obviously we're going to choose electric vehicles, or some companies will choose electric vehicles. Think of the life cycle of that vehicle. So if you have an electric vehicle, there's limited or less maintenance requirements. So you're not going to spend £250 on your BMW diesel vehicle every time it goes over 6,000 miles. If you've got I'm not going to say the common electric car brand, but any other electric car brand. And then when we think about PPE, that's always a good one for me. There's a lot of PPE product out there that's now claiming sustainable. Is it really sustainable? Check the certifications on those products, definitely. But don't just think about the price of that item. Think about how that can tie into your risk assessment and the products that you want the guys to use. Is that sustainable glove going to last 3 times longer than your single-use glove that you wear every day? You get a pair of gloves, you throw them away at the end of the day. Your sustainable one may last all week. True. So it's about looking at that life cycle of the product and not just the number that's written on the tag when you're looking at pricing. But as safety guys, maybe we need to have that conversation with the procurement people and get them to understand that it's not just that tag price, it's about the whole use of the product that we've got to consider there.
Absolutely. Procurement is the key ingredient in this mix. Procurement are always looking for cheaper things, but cheaper things are not always the best ones. So you always have to think about life cycle, how long it can stay, how long it can be reused, even at all it can be reused. You've got to think about all these things. So if it can be reused, why not? That means different people can use the same thing. But if you are, for instance, if you are buying personal effects, PPE personal effects, and you think that you want to get one for everybody, and maybe the good one, sustainable one will last 5 years, but it's going to cost 3 times as the one that will last 1 week, I would go for the 5 years one. Because you know that you'll be making savings within those time. There will be tax increases, maybe there will be VAT that may go up and all that. So if you continuously buy the cheaper ones, as you continue to buy, the more the prices become. But once you buy the sustainable one that will last longer, you are frozen the funds to be used for that within a particular period. Those funds could be diverted to other areas to help drive.
And as you're talking there, I'm thinking about that productivity question we had earlier on and how budget cuts, where we want to still keep safety on the agenda, but look at the productivity cuts. Now, if we're careful with what we're buying, and it's a sustainable and longer lasting product, then obviously we'll have a bigger hit the first year in our budgets, but then we won't need it in the budget the following 2 years, perhaps.
Absolutely.
So it's just about how we can convince the leaders that this could be the way that we go with those products and services, for example. A
typical example I can give. Years ago, we're using fuel bowsers to fuel aeroplanes, right? And then the concept of constructing a pipeline came in. In fact, initial stages when we were building the terminal, we didn't think about a pipeline. We only thought of bowsers. We bought bowsers, we had to import them from France. It was expensive. But when the thought of constructing a pipeline came in, that was more expensive than the bowsers. But at the end of the day, it had a better payback period. done the Bowser. So we decided to do both at the same time. So we did a pipeline, and today the pipeline is still being used. Saved them a lot of money. They're no more buying trucks.
And they think sustainability is a new thing. It's not. It's about reuse, recycle, and look at best ways and most efficient ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Well, thank you for that. That's the last of the formal questions. I hope I'm on time. What we'll do now, I'm going to be thrown a bit of paper in one of my hands somewhere from some questions from the audience. We've still got time. We've still got 20 minutes or so. Thank you, my glamorous assistant. So if you've still got any other questions, just please ask away. We'll get those across. So in no particular order, and I'm not going to embarrass anybody by saying the names or where they're from. So eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one do we go for first? I'm going to start at number 4 because it's just me. So Edward, a question specifically for you actually. Has Edward had to face any cultural challenges in embedding good, safe practices within a UK working environment? So obviously coming from Ghana and starting your career there, how's that transferred across?
Culture, yes. Culture is still something that we're grappling with all the time. So obviously back in Ghana, no disrespect to Ghana practice, but back in Ghana, we've got the laws, but the laws are not as biting as it is here in the UK. So moving from an area where there are regulations, but you don't find a lot of the regulators being very knowledgeable in what they are regulating, to come into an environment where the regulators are actually professionals in what they are regulating. So they come to you. For instance, I sat with the HSC over a visit to my site. Yep. And once they were there, the kinds of questions they were asking and the kinds of answers that they were expecting really told me that there's a lot to be done, you know. Whereas elsewhere, the regulators come, they always are giving checklists, you complete them, they come, they discuss, they don't probe too deeply, and they get things done. So that initially was a culture shock, but I've been able to navigate it. Okay. Another one is also communication. So the accents are different. I'm mindful of the fact that Ghana speaks the British English.
Yeah, I remember you saying that before when we spoke. That people are surprised by that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ghana speaks the British English. Yeah. In fact, our educational system in Ghana is akin to what's happening here in Britain. The school that my kids attend, for instance, are British curriculum schools, Cambridge curriculum schools. So they sort of know the right English to speak. But the accent is where the difference comes in. People speak very fast here, whereas we tend to speak very slowly. So in delivering presentations at my workplace, it's always a struggle. Sometimes they don't hear me. So I always have to take my time to be able to respond and speak so that they can understand what I'm driving at. Another thing that I see very different is that there's a lot of leadership support for health and safety here. I haven't struggled with getting the buy-in of my leaders on any safety initiative I like to take. Which is good. I haven't. Okay. But elsewhere, also in Ghana, I didn't struggle because I've been fortunate. The kind of business I've worked for, leaders were mostly from the West. So they also knew what safety was all about. They gave all the support that's needed. One thing that is very important is that we've got to always form alliances because there's a lot of loyalty as far as jobs are concerned here in the UK than it is in Ghana. Yep. Why I say this is I have people who have worked 25 years and things in some companies I worked for. But in Ghana, I can't tell you anybody who has worked for that particular company for more than 10 years. Wow, okay. You know, so those who have been doing it for that long time tend to have a way of doing things. Yeah. You ought to try to, I won't call it complacency, but they tend to have a way of doing things. So you always have to put yourself in their shoes to be able to understand the thinking behind what they're doing. Also, somebody like me who didn't have no waste background, but I found myself in waste, and I'm enjoying it. I found myself in waste. I have to always do double what the people are doing. Okay. So I had to come up with my own initiatives, get closer to them, learn from them, know the names of their dogs, know the names of their pets, and all of them. That way they feel like you are part of them, you think about it, you care about them, and they can open up to you. Trust is built. Exactly. The minute you build trust, I'm always able to deal with the culture issues as it comes. Now, flip side, they are my people. Back in Ghana, they are my people. We speak the same language. We eat the same kinds of food and all of that. So you really, see them as friends more than proper colleagues doing work. So sometimes you are not able to draw the line.
Yeah.
That creates a problem. But here, if it's work, it is work.
Yeah.
If it's fun, it is fun. You can't mix the two.
Okay.
So those are the differences I've seen in culture. But then the underlying one, that's what I feel is a root cause really is leadership. Mm-hmm. Because I find my leaders go around the site with me on inspections. My group head of health and safety would come in and do inspections by himself. Mm-hmm. He'll come to my site, do inspection on my site, issue me a report. What that tells me is that he actually seen what's going on. Mm-hmm. So he's not waiting for me to come and tell him what's going on. The director of corporate stewardship, obviously, who looks after the entire health and safety, is another committed person. Uh-huh. He would also come in and check to see that everything else is right. He will ask all the right questions. So you see that it is coming from the top. Yeah. That way, it becomes very easy for you to breeze through the challenges that comes.
And we always think, don't we, that an audit or a check or a review is a bad thing, and it's not really. I see that as another pair of eyes, making sure we're still on track. Yes. So, you know, you always think, oh no, I'm going to get a non-conformance from the audit or whatever it may be, or the managing director is coming in and he's going to find X, Y, and Z wrong. Well, maybe he needs to see sometimes that X, Y, and Z is wrong and we need some more investment or however that may be. Yeah. But every audit, every finding that people find, or however it be a formal audit or a visit or just talking to Bob in the warehouse and he sees something wrong, that's an area we can improve on. So I think that ties into the culture really well. Yeah. It's interesting you said about in Ghana that people typically stay in the job for a maximum of 10 years, but over here it's 25 years perhaps. I think that always comes back to me of thinking, when we're talking to that guy that's always done that job for 25 years, and as a safety guy, we want to convince him to do it differently. Yeah. And he'll go, yeah, but I've always done it that way.
Absolutely.
How many times do we hear that? Yeah. So. Okay, so we'll look at another one. And some of these are touching on some of the points earlier on, so thank you for that. Culture, so safety culture. Should health and safety culture be developed as a distinct entity within an organisation, or should it be completely integrated to the broader business culture?
Strategy. I think culture is strategy for breakfast, isn't it? Culture should be embedded broadly.
Safety culture.
Safety culture should be embedded broadly. Yep. It cannot be an isolated case. Mm-hmm. It has to be together. If you embed it from the beginning, safety culture in the entire business, you are likely to get a lot more people buy into it than doing it as an afterthought. Mm-hmm. So in my view, safety culture should be considered in the broader spectrum of the business. That will save you a lot of stress, a lot of compliance issues, a lot of quality issues. In fact, even the kind of product you send out, if you are in the business of satisfying maybe a manufacturing business that are supposed to support customers, if you have the right culture, right safety culture in place, your products obviously would be the right one on the market. The people would be more inclined to buy from you, because when culture is right, safety culture is right, accident rates are reduced. When safety culture is right, your absenteeism is reduced. There's another thing that always strikes me, presenteeism. People are actually at work, but their mind is not on the job. Yeah. That will lead to accidents. So when the safety culture is right, presenteeism is avoided. Productivity actually increases when safety culture is right, because everybody is happy, they are motivated, they're happy to do their jobs, things get done, whatever it is that they require to do their job is provided. Yeah. So once the culture is right, safety culture is right, everything else runs smoothly.
And for me as well, I think the safety culture has got to be within the overall business culture, because what you don't want is those two cultures to clash and bump heads. I think if you're aligned from the outset, as you say, that's the only way we can deliver that, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about AI. And for those older people in the audience that may not know what AI is, it's artificial intelligence, obviously, making sure we're getting to everybody in the audience. To what extent should health and safety professionals be embracing AI for risk assessment, predictive analysis of incidents, or automated compliance monitoring? And have you seen any successful practices of this? I think there's a big question. You could talk for ages just on AI, really, can't you? So.
This is actually big. I mean, it's a big question. And I think that the gains of AI is gradually getting getting out. People are getting to know why it's important to use artificial intelligence and things like that. I always go to the basic sense, talk about BBC. BBC, by that I mean born before computers.
Okay.
So there are the older generation who were born before computers. They do not know how
We were
to
talking about this earlier on, weren't we? Yeah, show my age.
Yeah, they do not know how to use computers and then all these applications to do things. But now they are taking over the world. In fact, it's one of the things that we can actually use to attract younger ones.
Yeah.
Once you embed AI into all our activities, people will be more inclined to join. So it's something that we've got to embrace. Now there's virtual realities that can actually be used to conduct investigations. Those in offshore and all of that, people use virtual reality to do things. That's AI.
Yeah.
So if you are not learning it, you are out. So we have to embrace it. In fact, with everything we've got, the world is moving. It's either you move along or you play catch up.
Yeah.
And by the time you are ready to play catch up, competitive advantage would have eluded your business. So it is very important that we, of course, embed AI in everything that we do, from hazard identification, from risk assessment, even from boots, safety wearables, all of them. A lot of things are changing. Last month was World Day for Health and Safety, and we're looking at digitization and AI. It has happened.
Yeah.
The days where we used to fill a lot of forms, spreadsheets, are all over. Now everything else is done at the click of a button. That's AI working out there. So we have to really embrace it. And it would help us, because if you are even thinking about sustainable development as far as businesses are concerned, AI is one of the tools that would help achieve that. Because the more papers we use, the more trees we are cutting. So if we use less paper, but we are going digital through the AI system, we are saving more trees, we are saving more papers and things like that. So yes.
Yeah. And you know, a simple tool for AI is ChatGPT. There's probably other options as well. I'm not into that, but I know ChatGPT. So who hasn't used that yet? And if you're in the audience out there and you haven't used ChatGPT, just tell him you want to redesign your garden or something like that, and it comes up with fantastic pictures.
Yes.
But it just shows how technically advanced that can be and how it could help us. I've been trying to think of different applications I can use AI in within the organisation, and I'm sure there's options, but sometimes you just need that, you know, that bit of inspiration of somebody that's used it already, where you can start sharing that best practice, and maybe that can then lead to other things. So maybe we do need the younger people that are coming out from university with their degree in computer science or whatever it is, to teach us, the health and safety guys, what is the art of the possible with AI and how we can use those tools to get better. So 8 minutes left. No more questions yet. I'm lucky I'll still have 2 more. So thank you. Another one on KPIs. Which KPIs do you believe are most predictive of future safety performance rather than just recording past events?
I would obviously drive with safety engagement.
Yeah, okay.
Reporting of hazards, hazard identifications, and all those risks and all of that. I will go with that because it gives you an idea of what is to happen if you don't deal with them.
Yeah.
So I feel like that KPI obviously should be driven down the entire business from top to down. We probably have to get to a point where the top guard or the top gaffer is actually reporting his safety events, risk assessments, hazard identification. If he reports and he sees to it that something is being done, it would encourage the others on the floor to do the same thing. So reporting safety events would help. It can actually help you gauge what is to happen. If you're able to report and fix them properly, you avoid things from happening, accidents and things from happening.
So really we're talking there about the collective term near miss, unsafe acts, unsafe conditions, hazards. How do we get people engaged in that? And we could also look at suggestion boxes.
Yes.
Or it's just ideas, or people talking about a subject in the restroom on a lunch break or something like this. But how do we do that to get engagement from the workforce, where we haven't got the safety guy or the leadership team creating policies around accidents specifically, but we're looking at how we can prevent those accidents in the future.
Yeah.
And how do we listen to that, and how do we really analyse those near misses? Yes, you can analyse every near miss or hazard that is reported, but how do you analyse that trend data to make sure you can see what could be that next incident or accident or catastrophe within your workplace. So it may not be down to an individual, but it may be a product, or they can hear a machine rattling like it hasn't rattled, you know, for the last 6 months. So is that machine going to end up breaking down and causing downtime or someone an accident and so on? Yeah. So it's about all those things, isn't it, really? Not necessarily just safety related, but the voice of the workforce as such.
Very important.
So, okay, 5 minutes left, just been told. And we have one more question, luckily. Right. No more questions from the audience, okay? So if I drag this one out, I've got to get one of the crew to ask a question, so that could be interesting. Have you come across any industry mentoring programs? So we did talk about mentoring earlier on, but have you come across any cross-industry mentoring programs or digital upskilling initiatives that are proving effective in attracting new talent?
Yes.
It's quite a hard one, that really.
It is. It is.
Save the hard one to the end.
It is a hard one, but then yes, I've come across some really interesting mentorship programs. I mentioned the IOS mentorship scheme, for instance. I've benefited immensely from that, and I know that there are a couple of other professional bodies that are introducing the same mentorship schemes. What mentorship has done for me, really, is that I got the opportunity of learning from somebody who has seen it and done it. So, and he always tells me the mistakes he's made, and how I should guide myself and be ready to be able to look at things differently from his thoughts. And based on that, it's really helped. So I feel like that mentorship platform that IOS provides is a great one that younger ones getting into the profession should take advantage of. Apart from the formal mentorship that's there, like these professional bodies, we can have informal, which will be more efficient mentorships. For instance, you are working with a senior colleague you know has seen it and done it. You just have to walk in their shoes. Try to get closer to them, ask them all the questions, be very curious. As a mentee, be curious. One thing that I advise though is that a lot of mentees, once they approach you to support, then the next thing they begin to ask you for financial gifts and things like that. As a mentee, you are there to learn. You are not there to be drawing for, be professional enough. Learn why you went there, stop all these things. So once we're able to, apart from the professional setting, as I said, go back to the informal setting, work colleagues, social clubs, you can find people in there who will be able to shape your thinking, challenge you to be better than who they are. I believe mentorship has a role to play.
Okay, that's good. And it's interesting there you said about mistakes and how do we learn. I think without talking openly about and being honest with ourselves that, I made these mistakes in the past, that's the only way we can learn as we go forward, isn't it? Not just in a safety role, but any role. I just think we've got to be, and it's not brave, but it's about being open. And, criticising yourself, because no one's perfect. And I think, we can learn a lot from being that vulnerable person saying, when I was 25, I got into safety and I did this, this and this. But if I did it, would you do it again the same? Would you, I often get asked that question, what career path would I have taken if I hadn't have done safety? Well, I have no idea because it's not on my mind because I'm doing safety.
Absolutely.
But would I have done it differently? Perhaps. Would I have gone into a different industry? Would I have jumped jobs every 2 years? I don't know, but it's just about being an open and honest person, isn't it? And seeing where we are.
It is.
So, okay. Are we any more questions? No? And I think we're 1 minute 25 away from the end, so I could talk really slowly and get bang on time. But I think we're happy with that. So, no idea how many people are out there talking to us, ramble on about health and safety. It's been great talking to you, Edward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. It's really appreciated.
And as I said from the beginning, everything I've shared is my thoughts. If you need any clarification, any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to support.
You're going to get thousands of people contact you now on LinkedIn, hopefully. Great. Thank you very much. And thanks, everybody, for attending. We'll close it there. Thank you.